Hey Darius, I'm glad you decided to spend some time with us today at the summit to talk about how you made the transition from corporate to full-time speaking. I know that's a transition that a lot of aspiring speakers want to make, and a lot of experienced speakers. They may be speaking regularly, but not enough to feel comfortable leaving the security of the full-time job. So, can you give us just a little background about you so that they have some context as to where you come from and how you made that transition?
It was coming from corporate banking. It was coming into from real estate and acquisition side of things and acquisition property management and so forth. So for me, it was a different thing. But when you're on commission, it's relatively the same as the speaking engagement because the paycheck is dependent upon what you do. And it's kind of the drip travel principle. It's going to drip in or it's going to flood. So one way or another, you got to make a decision to be very much on the hustle and grind. And you have to stay that way until you create an automated system that allows you to turn around and then have everything flowing smoothly.
So, how long have you been speaking?
It's about 20 years.
20 years, okay. And how long have you when did you make that transition with corporate? Was it right at the beginning, or was it after you had gotten some experience and expertise in a particular domain?
No, it was in the very beginning because, when you're doing these events or seminars and you're actually speaking from an investor standpoint, or you're dealing with various groups that you're talking to, and you're talking to these groups because you're trying to lure in clients, start out in the very beginning. So speaking was something that you had to do. And as a result, this was the tongue was your basic element of choice. This is your weapon. So, I went into it without anything other than this is your weapon of choice, and you got to get in there and slay the dragon, so to speak.
Gotcha. So you were speaking to sell.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Constant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that's a whole different animal than just, hey, someone paid you to show up. So making understanding that your paycheck was determining your ability to speak. Um, because you
And
got paid
more,
afterwards.
and
Right.
more importantly than that is you've got 3, 6, 9, 12-month lag time, depending on what's commercial residential. So you have to have 10 or 20 deals going because 5 or 6 are going to just drop out.
Ah,
And you can't be crying because things are going wrong. You got to keep on fighting.
gotcha. So how many presentations were you doing on a weekly or monthly basis?
On a monthly basis, you figure about 100. It's the
Wow.
law of averages where, you got to just get it because you got to realize GMAC, Chase, and everybody else is not waiting. So,
So I mean, so wait a minute. This is incredible. 100 presentations a month, presenting. And I think people don't think of it that way because we think of public speaking as only being in a room of 5,000 people. But if you're making daily presentations to an audience of 5, 10, 20 people, you're sharpening that stone, man. I mean, that knife is getting sharp, and your ability to read the audience and all of that is holy crap. I'm just imagining that now. I'm like, 5 presentations a day. Yeah, I would be really good at this, you
and
know?
keep in mind something. This was going on from whether you want to Cupid.com on dating thing, whether it's out at the park, whether it's in the elevator pitch. You're constantly talking constantly because it's whether it's a girl you're trying to date and you're trying to sharpen the skill. Maybe she wants to buy a condo or a house. You're talking, trying to date her, but in the meantime, you're trying to figure out whether she needs a house. It's like this is constantly going on. It's the janitor that says, "Well, I just got this situation where I had a accident." And here again, you're trying to pitch. He's like, "Okay, he has an accident. And he wants to get a house. He wants to do something, investment, constantly."
No, that makes sense. I don't think we think of those interactions as speaking, but it is because speaking is really communicating your ideas to motivate another person who's listening to take action, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, so speakers are really the original salespeople if you think about it, right?
Correct.
They're selling their idea to the audience. And if you get booed, they ain't buying it.
No, no, no. But this is the tricky part about it. You have to learn very quickly how to turn around and navigate the waters when you're one on one. See, when you're speaking to one or two people and you're realizing you're losing one, you got to figure out, okay, now I got to bring him back. So, unlike speaking in front of an audience, somebody can go to sleep on you and you're like, all right, I got the rest of it. No, no. If they go to sleep on you one on one, you got a problem
Oh,
because that's the
that's a,
paycheck.
that's a, well, I mean, but it's still a sign, right? If you're in an
Right.
audience of 100 people and someone goes to sleep somewhere in there, maybe we could say they didn't have enough coffee. They stayed up too late
Mm-hmm.
or something.
Mm-hmm.
But you start seeing people leaving and not coming back for 20 minutes. You like, I'm losing them, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
That's right. You got to stay animated at all times. You got to be prepared to create any type of, it's almost like I call it guerrilla speaking. You have to be prepared to turn around and do whatever's necessary to keep that audience going. And that means if you got to do song and dance, and you got to be, what's the name? What's the dancer name? I can't think his name. He's a tap dancer.
Gregory Hines. You got to get up
Yeah,
there to
you
Gregory
got to do like
Hines.
that. You got to tap dance constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Bojangles.
it's. I mean, I think if you're doing 100 gigs a month and you're doing presentations, whether they're large or small, your improvisation is really good at that point, right? So what are some of the things that you learned speaking internally in a corporate setting that most people may not understand when you're doing it, um, like when you're doing it outside of corporate? What did you learn in that structure of knowing your paycheck depended upon your presentations?
You have to realize how to package your story. And in packaging your story, I call it the OPM principle. You know, how do you turn around, own your story, package it, leverage it, and ultimately speaking, monetize it? And when you look at those factors in there, there's the OPM plus L. Okay. You have to figure out this is my story. I got to own it. So in owning your story, you got to think about, okay, tonight, if I go home and I don't turn around and walk away with at least one guaranteed prospect, I got a problem. In the same token, I got to package this story. I got to make sure this sounds so realistic and so believable, which it is that this person has to buy everything that you're saying and has to be prepared to buy the product, no matter what the product is. I mean, I can't just say, okay, you have to be a snake charmer. You got to be able to sell snake venom. You got to be able to sell an Eskimo ice, and you got to be able to sell, and they say Santa Claus Christmas. You know what I'm saying? You got to be just that good constantly. And the object of the game is to be so realistic in your story that people connect with you, whether it's like the neighborhood you're connecting from, whether it is the language, whatever the case may be. You've got to be able to meet them where they are.
I think that that's interesting because when I think about comedians, they come on stage, what's up, Toronto? What's up,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas? They always immediately try to build that rapport with the audience just by saying, hey, I know what city I'm in. Even though that's a
Mm-hmm.
small thing, that little bit of connection or making a joke, man, East St. Louis, I heard that was a dangerous place, man. I went
Mm-hmm.
over there to get a bag of chips and I was scared, right? And then they get
Mm-hmm.
into their set. Now, that first 3 minutes was that rapport building
Right.
and becoming real to the audience, finding something in common that lets them know that you're one of them. Is that kind of what you're describing?
Absolutely. You have to turn around. I mean, I akin it to being both a comedian and a rap star. You have to bring the bling bling and you have to bring the sing at the same time because these folks have got to feel what you're saying. You got to be able to be in a position where I like you. I like you immediately. And not only like you immediately, but I like the fact that what you're selling me is not a sale. This is something that I need. And more importantly speaking, I like you. And I like the fact that you're selling it to me without selling it. That's how smooth you got to be.
No, I think that's an interesting point. I want to ask you another question because you and I've had several conversations over the last 3 months, and you're always 100% you, right? What's the source of that authenticity? Is it because you've done it so many times? You've been you your whole life, of course, right? But authenticity, usually when someone's new in speaking, they're usually projecting what we call the representative. It's not authentically them because I got to do this because Les Brown said this, or I got to do this because Tony Robbins said this, and I'm gonna steal this from Lewis Howes, and I'm gonna steal this from Lisa Nichols. How do you build that authenticity to make sure that people know that you own that story, right? And you can talk about it with confidence.
I go back to a story when I was about 16, 17, and I was dating this girl, and her mom, Miss Kellum, would always say to me, Darius, are you still slick? And the object of the game was at 17, she was so focused on, I was so smooth, and I'm trying to get in her daughter, right? So what I realized is you have to maintain that consistency as to who you are. If you are selling and you are smooth at selling, then you have to maintain the smoothness in selling. The rapport in your mind has to maintain being the same. You have to maintain the fact that in your head, you are exactly who you are. So it's like, okay, if you're going to go from Wall Street to the streets, so to speak, you're going to the streets because these people are out there every day working. They're living and functioning. So if you turn around and you present the fact that, okay, I'm so polished and I'm so above par, then people kind of looking at it like you're not meeting me at my street. Meet them at their street. These people are living in non-suburban areas. Some of them are in rural towns. Some of them are in the inner city. Can I meet you where I just came from? Right? Not where I want to go, but can I meet you where I just came from? The non-polished side of it. Can you be non-polished and still be smooth? And that's what I realized. It's like, okay, I'm not going to be polished. I'm going to talk the lingo. Sometimes I'm going to throw that 100 in there. Are you 1,000? I'm going to throw things in there that where they are. Sometimes I'm out in the country and it's like, woo-ha, I got to get these people where they're feeling, exactly who I am. Okay, I'm a country boy. I'm a city boy. I'm all these things. If you're in the inner city and you're talking inner city kids, you got to turn around and connect with them as to what your background is and not leave that consistency of the fiber of who you are. Because sometimes we get so polished, we forget who we are. And therefore, we can't connect.
Well, I think that's a good point because I think we're all multifaceted, right? There's inside of me, I'm the business owner, I'm the brother, I'm the son, I'm the dad, I'm the partner. It's like you have all these different things. And when I'm talking to my 2-year-old daughter, I turned down Ron, the business manager, and I turned up I gotta be attentive to a 2-year-old, right? And I think sometimes people see that as, oh, well, in that case, that's what you're supposed to do. But when we do it in business, we say, oh, well, that's inauthentic. No, 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 no. I can turn up and turn down certain things. I remember when I used to work for Farmers Insurance, and I had to go and visit these agencies in these little bitty towns, 500 people in Central Illinois. And one day my company car, which was a Ford, broke down. And it was getting some work done, but I still had meetings, so I had to drive my car, which was an S-Class Mercedes. Worst day of meetings ever.
That's right.
Worst day of meetings ever.
That's right.
No, I didn't understand why they gave me a Ford in Central Illinois. I'm like, dude, nobody want no Ford Taurus or whatever. But everybody in Central Illinois got Ford trucks.
That's right. Effingham.
I'm relevant to them, I come out there in this Mercedes. They like, who is this 29-year-old dude with a go tell me how to? And I'm like, oh, this was a mistake.
Yep. Effingham, Centralia, Peoria. No.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned, oh, you know what? A lot of these people, before I meet them, I need to call them over the phone first. Because over the phone, they can't make a judgment on exterior things.
That's right.
So then when I show up, they're like, oh yeah, I remember talking to you last week. So then that rapport is already built before I showed up.
That's right.
Right. So I think when that's what it went back to. I was like, oh, knowing your audience is probably the most important thing before you even get on stage. That conversation with the event host and the event planner saying who's going to be here and what's their demeanor and what do they like? What do they don't like? What's your, understanding that ahead of time can make a heck of a difference. Because I remember that Mercedes day. That was a bad day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a book with Sun Tzu and the Art of War when he says every war is won before it's ever fought. So true. Before you walk into that sales meeting, you already are done because if that person knows somewhat of who you are and they've actually checked you out and they've got a vibe for you and they've watched you on television or on the internet, in this case, YouTube's and all these kind of things, they've already made the decision. All you're doing at that point in time is just inking it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, so that's interesting. So I'm going to ask you something because I always think this, and I mention it to some of my clients, but I want to get someone else's opinion, especially someone with 20 years of speaking. You mentioned that the decision is made by the time, before the meeting. It's really, so I used to tell my clients this, hey, if an event planner schedules an intro meeting with you, if you didn't get the deal, you talked yourself out of it.
Right.
Because why would they waste their time meeting with you if they weren't interested? What's your thoughts on that idea?
I actually kin it to what I told my son about girls. I go, listen, if you're with a girl and she turns around and invites you back to her place, 9 out of 10 times you're going to be good. But if you start talking, you start jabbering on and saying things that make no sense, you're going to be out the door in 10 minutes. It's the same thing. Shut up. Be quiet. Let them do the talking and let them sign the document. Don't start talking about all these facts and figures and this, that, and the other. We can do all these things for you. They already know that. They already know what they're going to do. That's how simple it is.
That takes me to the next question. In the meeting with the event planner, right? Should the speaker be pitching themselves and their topics, or should they be asking the event planner about the motives of the event and learning more about what the event is so that they can tailor their topic to it?
Just like you just said, they need to own it. I'm walking in there when I'm doing an event, I'm walking there saying to the meeting planner, listen, you've already made a decision. I'm telling them, you've already made a decision as to whether or not this is going to be my event or not. Now, what I need to know now is how do you want me to present what it is that your object or target, audience is going to be, and what do you want me to present on the table? And I will do exactly as you need. Done. Do not walk in there trying to actually pitch yourself a second time. They've already decided whether you're going to be one of two people that are going to be on the menu. Otherwise, you're going to walk yourself right out of it. Own it.
No, I think that's gold, right? Because when you're first starting out, you're just so excited. You're like, I want them to like me. I want them to like me. Let me send them this and let me send them that and let me send them all of these things. And I'm like, no, just relax, relax.
That's it.
Relax a little bit and have the meeting, because even though we sell B2B or B2C, right? In when you're selling your speaking services or your consulting services, it's still P2P, person to person.
Right. That's right.
Right. And if you remember, that the person on the other side, if you were in their shoes, would you want to get 18 emails and this person that is more focused on telling me their story instead of understanding the mission of the event that I'm trying to bring them to?
That's it. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the confidence level. When I say own it, I mean just that. You have to be confident enough when you walk in that room that this is your event. And let them know, if they haven't made a final decision in their head, this is mine. And now we're going to take it to the next stage. The next stage now is going to be, tell me what you need, and let's get to the bottom line. Let's ink the deal, and let's get the deposit, and let's keep it moving. Versus you turning around and reselling a second time, which then has them thinking, wait a minute now, let me get some more information from the other guy. You don't want any more information. You want this to stop right then and there. Own it.
No, that makes sense. So the acronym that you were using was it OPM, or what was it?
OPM plus L.
Okay, tell me what those four letters are. OPM plus L.
Plus L, right. Owning meaning that this is your life. This is exactly what you've been through, all your experiences, all the things that you've actually put together, and how you came to the place you are. We'll use an example of a mortician. The mortician is one of the best speakers that you could ever have, because he's dealing with death and he's dealing with people's emotions. So as a result, this is a person that has done all the things that you could possibly imagine, seen it all. So therefore, he's owning what his lifestyle is. So if he's in there talking about things, he's owning it. The next thing is packaging. How do you want to present it? Do you want to present it as audio, video, as guides, as flow charts, whatever else? How are you going to present it? The next thing is the monetization. How do I want to monetize this? Is it going to be monetizing it based upon the internet? Is it going to be monetizing it based upon associations? Is it podcasts? What do you want to do? Merchandise, and so forth. How do you want to do that? And then last but not least, how are you going to leverage it? How are you going to leverage it for long-term opportunity? You just don't want to be an overnight wonder. There are some people that are still to this day, Zig Ziglar. His stuff is still selling. His estate is still making a killing. And he's long since gone. So those are the case in points to be able to turn around and have that leverage to where you've got media leverage, you're legendary, you've got speaking engagements, you have speaking engagements, you don't even speak yet. You pop up online, it's like, all right, I got 10 minutes of my time to give to you. It's a political event, it's a social event, it's a philanthropic event. Constantly leveraging yourself. There you are. OPM plus L.
No, I think that's incredible. I like the L part, right? Because we always hear OPM is other people's money, but I think owning it, packaging it, and then monetizing it, and then figuring out, now that you've done those things, where's the leverage point, right? And no, I love that. I think that that's really, really, really incredible. So if you were making the transition, because when you're speaking in corporate, you're selling their product, right? When you go outside and some people, they may not, like a lot of speakers are like DEI experts and things of that sort. So they're not actually closing a deal. They're more selling ideas internally into the industry or into the corporation, or they may be an engineer that's, he has to lead his management team or whatever, but he's not really closing deals like sales guys like you and I were, right? How do you make that transition when you don't have a direct product that you were selling into the speaking world where you are selling a service now? Are you selling a product, a training, a consulting, or something?
Taking into account what your experience is all about. Who are you and who were you? Okay.
Okay.
If you were the vice president of marketing, okay, take a list of 1,000 different ideas of what you did, 1,000 different projects that you were on. How high paced was it? Was it under pressure? Was it under, some type of guidelines and, deadlines or whatever else? And then repackage that. For example, let's say you have a crisis management situation going on, and this company is all of a sudden about to go under because there's a crisis that just happened. Now you can sell crisis. How did you manage crisis? And if you can show 4 or 5 points of how you manage crisis and how you got them from one side of the fence to the other side, there you are. But it's taking your experiences and taking all the things that you've been through and the authentication of who you are and how you navigated the company through that to that. So the bottom line of it is you got to take all the experiences. People miss that on the resume. They forget on the resume about talking about what you've been through. And if you're going to convert that to a speaker, you got to look at all the things you've been through, every experience. I mean, even including some folks that say, well, I got caught for DUI. How'd you navigate it? I got caught as a kid for pilfering. What did you do to get straight? I got in a situation where it's an extramarital affair. How'd you navigate it? Look at all the things that made you who you are, and then turn around and turn that into a message.
No, that's cool. That's really important because a lot of times people tell the story, but they don't have a process on how to get out of it or how they
Mm-hmm.
got out of it. And I think building those frameworks, like you have the OPM plus L, right? Building that framework that attaches with each story or each event that a person may have experienced. I think that's a great way to build that foundation of what their topic should be about. How
Mm-hmm.
would you go about finding gigs if you were in corporate right now and now you wanted to make that transition?
I'd be looking at one of the things I talk about now in podcasts, distress. Corporate America is going to be experiencing a lot of distress. So if I'm a corporate manager, the first thing that I'm going to be looking at as a corporate executive or a lower level executive is how can I actually show corporate America how to deal with these restructurings, how to deal with foreclosures, bankruptcies, how to deal with things that are going on in management, how to deal with things that are going on employee morale, all those things. I'd be hitting a particular target. Forget about the whole diversity and equity thing. That's fine, but the bottom line of it is there's so many other things that are going on that are impacting corporate America right now. Hell, how to get workers back to work? How do you get a millennial to walk back into the office? That's the greatest target ever. And if you can figure out how to get them back in there, voila, you got $1 million fortune there.
No, so, okay, I got it. Because what you're saying is, Ron, who cares about your topic? Find out what they want you to come talk about, and then
That's right.
apply the skills that you've learned through your life experiences to solving that problem.
That's right. We missed that because we're so busy talking about, I know this. Well, you may know a lot of other things that are relevant in today's environment now. It's like AI. AI is changing things, but we're still back to the thing about human contact, human connection. We still can't leave that. And that's the same thing here. You might be a very great DIE person, or you might be a great manufacturing person. But in the same token, can you sell to Amazon how they can make the product more efficiency and then make more money? Because Amazon's all about efficiency.
No, it makes sense, dude. This has been like a half hour lesson on just understanding your product, like your customer, not your product, but understanding the customer in order
Mm-hmm.
to serve them, and that's that's invaluable, right? Like, I mean, once you figure that out, you just decide. It's really you deciding if you want to work with them. It's not even
That's
if
right.
they want to work with you. It's
Right.
like, okay, they got this problem. Do I want to venture on trying to help them solve it or not? Versus, do they want to hire me? No, I may not even want to work on this once they tell me, what they want to come talk about, you know?
Right. Because once you become a specialist at that one ingredient and you help one company or one private company or whatever the case may be, entity get past that crisis, right? Your name is going to be in the annals. Everybody's going to be calling you. You don't have to turn around and do the marketing anymore because the first thing that says is, how'd you get out of this? All these executives at a conference or association convention saying, well, your company just saved off the day. Who did it? They're going to call you. Very simple.
No, it makes sense. So, man, this gives me a whole bunch of perspectives because I'm sitting here thinking about like, If I was going to reach out to a local association to come in to give a speech, right? That person who's booking the speakers, they've been at all the association meetings. They get the topic request and the hey yo, they get to hear at lunch, oh man, we're dealing with this. And they hear five companies dealing with the same problem, right? So I would be reaching out to the association saying, hey, are there any topics that your constituents want to have covered that you haven't been able to find a speaker to tackle for you, right?
I'll go a step further than that.
Tell me.
If you get something as simple as the annual or the monthly or the daily papers or the daily magazines that these companies subscribe to, you will know all the problems that you need to know. I get about 1,000 magazines a week on all of the industries, right? And I'm looking for a particular situation where nobody else is touching it. And that's the one I want to tackle. Okay, you're in the plumbing and heating business and you have a problem with getting contractors. Oh, that's what I want to tune into. I'm not asking anybody anything because I go to association meetings too. Don't get me wrong, you're correct. But if it's already there written in ink and everybody's chiming in on it, oh, this is it. This is perfect. So that's the other key. Speakers need to make sure that they get all the information they can from these reports, the various magazines, the various media things, because that's the information right there. They're actually talking about what their problems are. They're telling you. All you got to do is hone in on it.
No, that makes sense. So it's the research ahead of time, right? And I was talking to someone and they said, I asked them, I said, well, what's the difference between a speaker and a thought leader? And they said research. And I was like, what do you mean? He says, well, the thought leader has looked at what everybody else has had to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then because that person has their perspective, this person has their perspective, they get all the perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come to a conclusion based on 10 people's perspectives
Mm-hmm.
versus just one, which
Right.
makes them seem or come out as the thought leader because they've taken in consideration all the angles. Where usually the expert only has one angle, the thought leader has all the angles. And I thought that was brilliant because it was like, oh, that's why you make 10 times more money than the person who just has one perspective.
If you're smart at this whole process, you become Moses of the industry because you're able to turn around and take the 10 commandments or whatever you find and put them all together, as you just said there, and you got it. Because you're able to turn the key because everybody else is looking at an angle. You're looking at the one key angle that everybody can't solve. And you're constantly doing the same thing. I mean, we look at Tony Robbins. The number one thing that he focuses on there is mental concentration, just the bottom line. How do you take your mind and realize all the things that you can do, i.e., the Navy SEALs? What do the Navy SEALs do? Stretch you beyond the limits. Everybody can't be a SEAL. So that's where everybody's not in that business. The same thing with wealth. Everybody can't be wealthy because everybody has to stretch their minds. That's what Tony Robbins' product is, just like Navy SEALs. He looked at their situation and figured out, wait a minute now, it's a mental thing. Can you walk across that hot coal? It's a mental thing.
No, that makes sense. Dude, this is like, I'm learning so much for this. I thought this was for everybody else. I'm over here like, dude, this is helping me out a lot. Because I think about it like I have these flashbacks. Like, okay, people ask me all the time, well, how did you figure out how to get speakers booked? And I'm like, well, I mean, during the pandemic or whatever, I met with 1,000 speakers individually over Zoom. I learned a lot about what they were
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, how they wanted to do things. And I kind of discounted that as, oh, well, yeah, I mean, that was what you do. You like, we didn't have anything else to do. You did meetings. But now I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, that was my competitive edge,
Mm-hmm.
right? My edge was I got every speaker's perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You became Moses. There you go. You can
I
lead the
got
people
every
around.
yeah, from the person who just started one day to Les Brown, right? And
Right.
you get like, holy crap, like all of these people are in the same industry and they all see it. It's like the elephant. One person's touching the tusk, another person has the tail, another person is grabbing the ear. It all feels different, but it's the same animal,
That's right.
right? And that thought leadership thing allows us to step back and see the entire animal and be able to say, "Oh, you see it that way because you touching the ears, or you see it that way because you got the tail, or you got the foot," you know. And I'm like, "Oh, Darius, you just peel that back for me." And I think sometimes we're too narrow. You know what I mean? Like we hear the niche thing, but
Hmm.
it's okay. I think it's okay to have a niche, but you got to back up a little bit to see that that needle that you represent is part of a porcupine. You know, it's like,
Hmm. I mean, I'll give you a good example, Ed. You see behind me there the rhino,
uh-huh.
and I'll tell you the story behind the rhino. That rhino has a microphone and boxing gloves, right? Now, nobody's ever asked me why. And I'll explain you why he's got the muscles and he's got this muscle shirt and he's got the boxing gloves. Because when I'm walking into a room, I'm boxing. I'm rocking the mic. I'm boxing. But I got the rhino. What does the rhino do when he charges? He charges right and he tears things up. Real simple. Okay? There it is. I adapted the concept of I put myself below the rhino as a platform, and above the rhino is the microphone, those boxing gloves. I'm taking this mic and I'm boxing. I'm boxing when I go into the meeting. I'm boxing when I'm in the audience. I'm the rhino.
No,
You're going to have to remember me because I'm the rhino.
no, I get it. I get it. I mean, and the muscles, because the stuff you're talking about is powerful. You
That's
know,
right.
I mean, it's very. People may on the surface like, oh, that's simple. No, 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 no. When you apply, you're like, wait a minute, this is some really game changing things because the beauty is in the simplicity of
Mm-hmm.
owning your message, packaging it, learning to monetize it, and
Mm-hmm.
then applying leverage to that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't lose. Like
No.
it's that. Like I remember it just from you telling it one time. I'm like, oh, I get it because I'm applying each part. I'm like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
get it. You know. So what did I miss in the last 40 minutes or so that we've been talking? What is something that you want them to take away from this conversation that I missed?
To be able to realize that their lifestyle is a story. Okay. From the point in time that they became on this planet as an embryo to the point in time they are adults now. And in that saga are all different stories. Now, how do I take those various messages and combine them together and create a business? Their life is a story, whether it was the date that you were on, whether it was the marriage that went wrong, whether it was a corporate career that you spent into and you got kicked out the door, whether it was the car that broke down and all of a sudden you got the mercy and blessings of God and somebody came along and gave you a ride to wherever you had to go to, whatever the situation is, even if it's something horrific that you survived an accident that took you over the side of a cliff and you're still breathing. You might have one less arm or one less leg, but you're still breathing. Your life's a story. Packaging that message and actually being able to bring that to the table where an audience will appreciate where you've been and that they still have another day to make it happen. Because so many of us are in those points where we're like, okay, enough. I can't make it another day. And sometimes as a speaker, you give somebody just like a R&B singer. I listen to all this R&B stuff, right? And you might be going through things at that time. Mary J. Blige or Jodeci, whatever else, those era, it's like, yeah, yeah, they're where I am. Yeah, yeah, I'm feeling that. And you make another day. As a speaker, can you give that person another day of existence to say to themselves they can be more prosperous, they can be more focused, they can turn around and get through? There it is. Can your message from the past give them a future?
No, that's incredible. Dude, you're dropping so many gems because I'm sitting here thinking like Frankie Beverly and these different singers.
Mm-hmm.
Singers are public speakers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the songs that we like the most are the ones where the singer lived it,
That's right.
right? We're like, dude, it was the day of September, whatever
That's
that
right.
song.
That's
We
right.
love that song from the
That's
OJs,
right.
whoever it was,
Right. Papa.
because that Papa was a Rolling Stone thing. He lived
Mm-hmm.
that. So
That's
he
right.
understood it. When Smokey wrote it, he was like, oh, I want to punch him in the head. Why he picked
That's
the day
right.
my daddy died?
That's right.
And it brought that rage out of him. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's owning
Mm-hmm.
that thing, right? They packaged it in the music,
Mm-hmm.
right? They packaged the song into a record.
Right.
They monetized it,
Right.
right? And then they distributed it. They applied leverage to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a story about a guy's dad or a different. I could go on. I'm gonna be stopped because I'm.
And it's a legacy now because we still remember it. Those of us over 40 still remember that song.
Oh
It's
yeah, and
in our
those
mind.
guys are dead. Most of
That's
them
right.
don't even
That's
like
right.
Motown don't even exist anymore. The record
Right.
label, Barry Gordy's gone, but
That's right.
he produced something and
Mm-hmm.
leveraged it, and we're like, yeah, that story will always remember it. And then when we saw the
Mm-hmm.
movie, they
Mm-hmm.
repackaged it into the movie.
There you go.
And when we saw it in the movie, we were like, oh, that was because of his daddy. We didn't even know the backstory. So your
That's right.
story got a backstory, which is
Right.
a whole nother story, right? I mean,
That's it. That's it. That's what I'm saying. If you own your story, there it is. You got to own all the things that happen to you to make it as a speaker. You know, speakers so often say they want to turn around and, like you say, they want to connect with some other high profile speaker. Forget that. Connect to what happened to you. Like I always tell the story about child support. I'm like, listen, I got arrested not because I didn't pay, but because he didn't want to turn around and allow me to see the kids. So I stood on principle. I'm not going to pay. So I always tell the story about, okay, I'm walking out of the
well, tell it. Tell the story. Tell us the story. What happened?
I get arrested, right? So I'm actually going into the jail, right? So I'm going into jail, and in the center of the event, it's like you're in this, um, you call it yard, so to speak. And first experience in there is like this guy gets hit, right? The guard hits him because he gets smart mouth, and I'm like, okay, I'm straightening up, I'm cool. So meantime, I'm walking into where the big yard is, where they got this cage, right? And I hear all these guys and they're screaming, right? And I'm like, what are they screaming about? So I asked the guy, what are they screaming about? The guy goes, well, they're going to take the Q-tip and stick in your penis. I'm like, oh Lord, no, no, say it ain't so. This can't be happening. So it ain't so. I can't be going through this. So meantime, I'm the
So
last
wait,
guy
this
in
is
the
upon
queue.
arrival. You're just getting in. This is like checking in
I'm
or
just
something.
getting in the bullpen, right? I'm just
Okay.
getting in there, right? So this is Cook County, over on 26 in California, Chicago, right? So meantime, they get into the last one. I'm on my knees. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Father, Son, Catholic. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I'm praying. I'm like, I got to get out of here. Meantime, the guy goes, Ross, you're free to go. Get this now. I'm walking across the bullpen. I'm looking up at the tiers because Cook County is like 3 or 4 tiers. And the guy goes, yo, fresh meat. It's on tonight. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. From now on, I'll pay her. From now on, I'll pay her. I don't care if I see her or not. I'll pay her. So the moral of the story is I learned that lesson. No matter what you do, pay. Let it go. Don't sit on pride. So I tell everybody in the audience those things, they just start like cracking up laughing because they're like, oh, you funny. I'm like, I'm looking up here going, I can't fight all night. Something's gonna give. But that's the reality of it, you know? I akin this story to my own experiences because I realized that I'm like, this ain't no joke. I'm not the character for this. Okay.
That is so funny. I think the yeah, it's a good story. Like it has interesting visuals. You're like, oh man, I can just imagine walking in like, oh nah, this ain't
This is your
right.
first time there too. You don't know what to do. You
Yeah, it's like, dude,
disorientated.
just go give this person these couple $100 and move on with my life.
That's right. That's right. Let it go. You're standing on principle, but you don't realize what can go wrong on principle.
Oh man, that is wild. So I got a quick question for you before we hop off. Or do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I love it both sometimes.
Tell me more.
You know, sometimes I can be, all in my own zone and just, nobody around and just doing my own thing. And other times, I got to get out there and, have fun and just be crazy. So it depends.
Yeah, that
I get
makes
both
sense.
vibes.
I think that makes sense. I think it's like what we talked about earlier, where you can turn certain things up in the given the situation. I think most people when they're comfortable, they can be thermostats, where they can kind of control the temperature
Mhm.
versus when you're kind of a little bit not in the right area, you become a thermometer where the room's temperature is controlling you a little
Mhm.
bit. And when you went to that jail, that room started getting hot. You said, "Hey,
It got real. It got real. As the kids say, it was real. Because all of a sudden you start realizing this ain't what I thought it was. I hear these kids talking about, I'm bad, I'm bad. Let me tell you something. There's 25 guys around you. You ain't bad no more. It's a whole different story.
oh man, you that room got hot." You said, "Look, I'm a change. I'm
That's
a
right. I
change
got
man."
outside to the ground. I'm kissing the ground. I'm kissing the ground like the Pope all of a sudden. It's like freedom. I can appreciate what freedom means now.
Oh man, that's a great way to end this. No, Darius, I appreciate you giving us some of your 20 years of insight as a internal speaker, speaking to sell inside of corporate, but also making that transition. Just some practical things that a person can do as they make the transition of offering their own products and services on a larger stage. Really centers around getting to know your audience, listening a lot more than pitching. And when you get the assignment, go and deliver like the Rhino. So that's what I took away from it. I'm sure the people who are listening took some other things away from it. Always remember, guys, OPM with an L. Own your message, package it, monetize it, and then apply leverage to it. And you'll be incredible. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.